Good evening. I'd like to call to order tonight's meeting of the ISD 191 Burnsville Egan Savage School Board. The date is August 27th, 2020, and the time is 6:30. I'd like to start by welcoming folks who are joining us remotely. Always appreciate knowing that people are following us, and particularly in these times, staying abreast of all the moving pieces that are living within our school district and in our country. So, with that, Director Schatz, would you please start us off with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Chair,
Yes.
Chair, I'll point of order for a moment. Aaron, are we certain we're broadcasting on YouTube at the moment? Typically, we have a little indicator up in the corner. I don't see that in my screen, at least.
I do see it in mine.
I see a recording. That's usually up there. There's also a link to the YouTube broadcast, typically.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah, we are struggling to load it right now, so it seems to be stalling out a little bit. If we want to wait and either start over or start, that probably would be good. We are recording at this point, though, so we'll have everything.
Okay, so we'll pause and just wait for you to come back and let us know to start up.
That sounds good. Thank you. Sorry about this.
No, that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Miller.
reimbursement, 713 student activity account, 720 vending machines, 510 school activities, and 506 student discipline policies.
Great.
That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Director Chester. Next, we'll turn to our legislative committee. Director Miller, you want to stand in for Director Hallwiger?
Yeah, sure, we met here, Dr. Battle, do you have the date on that? It was at, sorry, you caught me unawares. Hang on just a second. But we did meet in attendance, Director Hume, myself, and Dr. Battle. That was on Monday, August 17th. And we just had one agenda item. Dr. Battle, do you want to review that real quick?
Yes, we had a follow-up to our facilities realignment process. The board has a desire that if we do sell property, could we use the proceeds and have legislative action to use it for general fund. And so I did have a follow-up with a legislator about that process, and I shared the process with the committee, which is the legislature must approve such a transaction.
Yeah, we just had a little bit of discussion about that and a couple of additional clarifications we asked for, and that was the extent of the meeting. That ends my report.
Thank you very much. We'll turn next to negotiations with Director Schatz.
The negotiations committee has had no activity since the last report.
Thank you. And SPA has had no, we have had no SPA committee of the whole meetings, and officers will be looking to the fall to identify some topics for those committee meetings. Are there any any individual reports on other committee or outside the district assignments?
Chair Alt, I have a couple of reports. The Association of Metropolitan School Districts, the beginning of the new season for AMSD began on August 14th at 7:30 and was a Zoom meeting. There were 3 guest speakers, all from the governor's office. First, both Commissioner Mary Catherine Wicker and Deputy Commissioner Heather Mueller spoke about the governor's decision about the upcoming school year, giving districts the option of implementing distance learning, hybrid learning, and in-person learning. Details of these options are on the MDE website. Look for them on the web page entitled COVID-19 Updates page, keeps you informed. They were followed by the Secretary of State, Steve Simon, who gave updates on changes due to COVID-19 to election procedures. Do check out the Secretary of State's website for additional information on voting this fall. For example, I checked it today and I didn't realize that there's an option where you can drive up and don't have to get out of the car and can vote. The meeting concluded with an executive director's report. The main takeaway was the tax surplus flipped into a tax deficit. And by the way, the AMSD's next meeting is tentatively scheduled to be back at the Quora Educational Center in Little Canada. The space is large and I believe can accommodate social distancing. We'll see. Now on to the District 917 report. The August meeting of 917 was held on August 18th. Regular business included approval of board minutes, personnel recommendations, payment of bills, wire transfers, the investment report, and the annual committee assignments. New business included The approval of the FY 2021 and FY 21-22 school resource officer contract with Dakota County Sheriff Department. There's language in the contract for payment for services actually served. So if the school year ends up in a form of distance learning, the district would not be billed. There were 3 agreements which were approved of teachers who are employees of member districts but work full-time in 917 programs. There were updates from Melissa Schaller, the lead administrator of the 917 special education programs, and Eric Van Brocklin, lead administrator of the 917 DECALS programs. DECALS stands for Dakota County Area Learning Service Programs. Then the board approved a resolution adopting a base learning model for the 2021 school year and other COVID-19 related matters. And this concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Courier. Are there any other reports? No? All right. Then next we will turn to Dr. Battle. We will receive a report about the Birth to 8 Joint Powers Agreement opportunity. Dr. Battle.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Alt and members of the board. Tonight, I am providing a brief report about the Birth to 8 initiative, or B28, that is bringing together key entities from public health, human services, community nonprofits, and education in Dakota County. B28 aims to assure children reach key developmental milestones from birth through age 8 and to identify children and families early who may be at risk, with the vision that 100% of children identified will meet the state proficiency reading targets. Key developmental milestones have been identified, which will be categorized in 3 levels: red, yellow, green, similar to stoplight, indicating their current level of need. To just give you a little context, between October 2016 and June 2020, Dakota County made more than 1,260 referrals to school districts. Please know this process is entirely voluntary. Parent and guardians must sign a consent before enrolling. Dakota County will provide health and developmental benchmarks, and all parties will be able to monitor the development of students over time by putting information into the portal. At the next board meeting on September 10th, I will bring forward a recommendation to approve the Joint Powers Agreement for Birth to 8 initiative. Please know this agreement will allow for our information to go into the portal. It will allow districts and Dakota County to access the portal for use in the services provided to families. A copy of the Joint Powers Agreement is included in tonight's board packet for your reference. Also joining me to help answer questions are Cindy Check, our Early Childhood Learning Coordinator, and Tom Umhofer, our Director of Community Education Programs, who both have been serving on the Birth to 8 Steering Committee since its inception, when the legislature gave authority for a pilot project. So this actually comes straight from Minnesota legislature. With that, that includes my report.
Thank you very much. Board members, are there any questions or comments? Not at this time. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Battle. And next we will stay with Dr. Battle. We are receiving an update about District 191's efforts to implement COVID-19 related educational and public health guidance issued by the MDE and MDH respectively. Dr. Battle.
Thank you. Chair Alt and members of the board, tonight I will share information related to the 4 primary areas of our COVID-19 planning for reopening schools in the fall: health and safety, academics, student and family support, also operations and staff professional development. Also, we want to walk you through important sections of our ISD 191 website that provide the most up-to-date information regarding fall 2020. So let's first start with health and safety because COVID-19 is a health pandemic. So since the last board meeting, staff have been working on plans to educate students, parents, guardians, and staff about the health protocols and mitigation strategies that our lead practical nurse, Bernie Bean, has given very detailed information about in previous sessions. Our nurses have prepared presentations for staff that will be given next week as staff return for opening week for professional development. We will be using health and safety signs from the Minnesota Department of Health and CDC for educating students and staff. Some of the examples include, and it is developmentally appropriate based on elementary, middle, or high, such as wash hands, be a germ buster, prevent the spread of COVID, how to wear a mask, stay home if sick, and social distancing guidelines. And these are available in English, Spanish, and Somali. Moving on to the county updates. As you know, the initial information that we need to review in determining the learning plan is our county data for the number of confirmed COVID cases per 100,000 residents. So today, every Thursday, they release county information. So as of today, Dakota County was 19.63 and Scott was 21.55. This does represent a decrease from the previous data, which was 20.56 for Dakota County and Scott was at 24.83. It still puts us in the hybrid learning model. Also, every week Bernie Bean, Stephanie White, and I have calls with Dakota and Scott County every Friday. After the numbers are released on Thursday, we receive more additional information. Last Friday, during our weekly call, they wanted to emphasize that the numbers from last Thursday represented a plateau, but these numbers are higher than the last plateau in June. They believe the summer numbers that have been reported have been impacted by graduation parties and weddings. So tomorrow, we will also have our calls to better understand the numbers released today. Moving on to PPE. We have received PPE for staff providing special education services, early childhood special ed through pre-K, through 12th and our best students. The PPE includes masks, cloth masks with clear mouths, gowns, plastic barriers, hand sanitizers, disinfectant bottle spray. The PPE from the state of Minnesota will be picked up tomorrow and delivered to sites next week. Moving on to academic and school planning. Early childhood has screening components that can be completed online, by phone, or mail. Staff are conducting virtual screening reviews with parents to discuss completed components. They also will be available for some in person. We continue to work on our hybrid learning model. We are really attending to student schedules because they must be strategically developed. So K and 1 students will meet with their teachers on September 10th through 11th for individual reading and math benchmarking assessments. The Chromebook pickups are scheduled and schools will communicate those schedules and procedures to families. And we are in the process to ensure that our families have access to reliable internet. Our virtual academy, we have 2,634 students enrolled. Teachers, students, and parents will have 1 administrator to provide support and supervision, even though they will still be attached to their home school. This assigned administrator will work with the other principals to provide alignment between students and teachers, home school, and the virtual academy. Technology for virtual academy, each child will be provided a device, and we will work with those families, again, to have that very strong internet service. The team is also considering how to build community because this is a new school environment, video conferencing, looking at printed materials, and parent education. Moving on to student and family support, we realize it may take longer for children to develop trust and to adjust to expectations in a learning program when their schedule will alternate between days away and days at school. And so if the learning program differs significantly from the environment that the student has less comfort in, the student might experience additional stress. So our PBIS team is really paying close attention to that, to establish routines that help build a sense of safeness and security, a sense of community, trying to understand the child in the context of family, culture, and community, and really working on some calming activities. Moving on to activities, we do have sports we offer through Minnesota State High School League, and we also offer clubs and activities. So all activities require a return to practice meeting plan that must be approved by the building administrator in partnership with the school nurse. So every advisor, every coach must submit a plan for review. So we have stipend activities that have a competition or performance component. And so this applies to them. Some of those examples are academic quiz bowl, the fall play, speech debate, mock trial, science fair. And then we have stipend positions that do not carry a performance or a competition component. Some examples are student council, National Honor Society, and yearbook. So they will be encouraged to meet virtually to begin the year. And then we also have non-stipend positions after school clubs, and they will have the option of meeting virtually only. And we have approximately 30 of those clubs. Now moving on to operations, ISD 191 systems are in safe operational mode status. So in the guidance from Minnesota Department of Education, there are requirements, and we have met those requirements. The maintenance staff are conducting evaluations of our operational capacity to always increase, improve, and maintain ventilation and other systems. Transportation, please remember we must transport students at only 50% capacity. And so for our full-size buses, that's 37 on a bus. And for a type A bus, that's 11. We also will be using our transportation for needed meal distribution and instructional material delivery. A little bit more about PPE. Every site will receive PPE for distribution to all staff, 2 cloth masks, a disposable mask, and a face shield. Enrollment, as of August 19th, the total enrollment of VPK 12 was 7,989, which is currently higher than what we used in the projection. For K-12, we used in the projection 7,887. K-12 is 7,788. Food service plans. So at the last board meeting, we did say Minnesota was waiting on approval or to learn the status of its waiver request to the federal government. So on August 21st, the USDA did issue an extension through September 30th for schools to use the summer program before school starts. So they did this on a national scope because some districts were delaying their start date, similar to us, like we delayed ours for 2 days. Some districts that normally began school in August have now been delayed until September. Once school begins, we must follow the national school breakfast and lunch programs. So due to the late announcement of this waiver, we did not have sufficient time to keep offering meals through the start of school, since we had already exhausted supplies, had staff who needed time off, or had plans, and then we just need to have prep for fall. So this waiver barely helps any Minnesota district since most schools are starting school in early September. Moving on to staff and educator support and professional learning, new staff orientations have been occurring. The new teacher orientation was held this past Monday, and I did give a welcome. We are applying our current HR orientation processes to provide information on benefits, policies, and technology access. And we are also sharing about social distancing and other Minnesota Department of Health guidance. There is training that is done at the building and departmental level. Moving on to next week, the reopening of school, all staff PD begins on Monday and continues through Tuesday, September 8th through 9th. 9/7 is Labor Day holiday. And I really want to take this time to thank our parents and students who have been patiently waiting for information about the reopening of school. There have been many parent sessions. Our schools have started that, and I believe there's a Zoom meeting tonight. Mr. Helke can tell us later. I think the students have a Zoom meeting tonight. And so I really want to thank you. And so to conclude my report, Aaron Tinklenberg will walk us through the fall 2020 section of the ISD 191 website.
Thank you, Dr. Battle, Chair Alton, and board members. I'm just going to bring up our website and take you through a little bit about what's there. As you can see, of course, this is our homepage, and right away when people get there, they will see a link to our safe return to school information. There's also a link right here to take people to fall 2020 information. We're trying to have this be, a center of information for people so that they know where to go and can find pretty much everything that they need. As it is a fluid situation, of course, we're always adding information as it becomes finalized. So for instance, while this homepage has our safe return to school plan and including the calendar, the staggered start to the school year in terms of which grades start on which days, when it comes to the hybrid model, as well as information about transportation, start and release times, our basic health and safety commitments, and then information, of course, about Virtual Academy and other resources right away on the homepage. But we do continue to add more information as we go. So if people want to get more in detail about what Distance Learning 2.0 means, how it's going to be different, for instance, than what we did in the spring, they can find that information here, along with tech resource information for parents. For instance, getting started with a Chromebook in several languages, how families connect to Seesaw, and how parents use taking care of school at home. We also have, we'll have some information about using Schoology and other resources on there as well. A lot of credit goes to, of course, our technology department and Katie Salmella in particular for creating these walkthroughs and tutorials for families. We do have information about our health and safety practices here. If people are wondering about those, they can go through what we're trying to do to keep students and staff safe. And then, of course, the question we get a lot is what happens if there is a case of COVID-19 that's identified, and we take you through the steps that we'll do there. And people can even see the sort of decision tree table from the state of Minnesota. Basically, as you heard last board meeting, we work very, very closely with county and state health officials to make sure everybody gets the information they need, the notifications that they need. We do have a section with frequently asked questions. So if people aren't sure, they want to try to find the information they're looking for, a lot of that is here. Again, as questions are finalized, we are always adding to that. So it's often worth going back to take a look at it as a first place to go. An example of information that is just being added as it gets finalized, pre-kindergarten information, since it operates a little bit differently than kindergarten through 12th grade, of course, with half days and things like that. That information is here, kind of gets its own page. And then an example of information that will be added shortly, we get questions pretty regularly about childcare before and after school and during school days when students are doing distance learning, for instance, childcare that's available That information, the outlines of it have just been finalized today, and that'll be up either later today or tomorrow, more likely for families. And then we'll start pushing that out in information that we send out social media and other places like that. That's the basics of it. We're trying to have this, like I said, be the home of information, and where people can go, sort of a one-stop shop. But we know it's also passive because it's a website. So we're trying to push things out on a regular basis through social media and at least weekly updates to families through email. Director Miller, I see you have a question. Oh, it's not my job, sorry. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Director Miller.
No, actually, it's not a question directly for you, Aaron. But first of all, a statement in general. Thank you to everybody that has put a lot of time and work into this. I know that you guys have been planning over all the different opportunities and paths we could take throughout the summer. And once we got guidance, you guys really put this into high gear. From planning enough time for teachers to get in the classroom and adjust, to a proper schedule that allows families to get on some sort of routine and keep the buildings clean and safe. A lot of thought's gone into this, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. I don't know if this is a question for Lisa Ryder or Dr. Battle, but I'm curious about transportation. We asked our families to opt out of bus route if that was a feasible option for them. I think we had initially said in a previous meeting that we were, if no one was to opt out, we were looking at a problem. Have we overcome that challenge? Are we in a good place on transportation?
Thank you, Vice Chair Miller. Yes, Lisa Ryder can answer that.
Yes, so this past week, we passed the list of all of the students and their cohorts identified over to transportation for them to begin the routing process. Given the numbers that we have in our virtual academy, as well as the numbers of families that have opted out of transportation who otherwise might be eligible, we feel that we should be able to do some good routing for students staying under the capacities of the 50% at this time. We just began the work. So there, sometimes that the details mean a lot. So we are hopeful and working on getting all those very completed by the end of this week, and into next week is when we'll begin talking about how to communicate this out to people so that they can understand and know. We understand that a number of families are waiting for this information, and we just spoke with our non-public St. John's, who also receives transportation through this process today. So their families also will be receiving information on how they can register so they can also be routed on the buses. So that's all in process.
Okay. And then another question for Stacy Sovine. I think in any given, I think people tend to not realize, and even in a quote unquote normal year, the challenges that go to putting together the mix of staffing and needs and such across a district. As teachers are not just teachers, obviously they're licensed in different areas and experts in subject matter and such. So as we head into this COVID environment with the vast number of students that opted to go to the academy, the virtual academy, and now and with the needs of teachers making sure they're safe and comfortable with what they're doing, you don't have to give me numbers, Stacey. I just want to feel comfortable that we're putting the puzzle pieces together adequately, and we're going to be able to meet our needs. Week, what is it, 2 weeks from now when we start going? So.
I'm really going to have to give a lot of credit to all of our principals throughout the district. I can't tell you the amount of hours in which they are trying to stay within our current FTE allocation that we had, and then trying to match up all of the licenses with their need areas. Not only are we trying to do that, at the same time, we sent out late July a list or a form to all of the staff requesting their preferences. And some of the folks were requesting preferences to do the virtual academy for personal reasons. Some were wanting to do the hybrid model. That's just where they felt comfortable. So last year, or normally every spring, we do staffing probably over about a 2.5 month span. The principals had to go back, replicate all of this with the folks that are being pulled out to do the virtual academy, and then trying to realign licenses. And they've been doing that, and quite frankly, in just a little under a week. Now that we're kind of landing on stuff, the amount of time, I just have to give kudos to the principals. They
Well,
are.
and I think we would be remiss to point out too that we closed 3 schools going into this would have been just a challenging fall given that environment. So
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much to everybody that's bent over and done a lot of work on this. I really, really appreciate that. So.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Director Schatz.
Thank you. Eric took my transportation question, so I will just then say that as I guess put on my parent hat for a second, that I feel like I've gotten a lot of really great information from the district about not only about what's happening and what the plans are, but also messages of we're still figuring this out. Here's, here it's coming, the information's being worked on, and here's the challenges that we're coming up with. And so, which lots of people are waiting for a lot of information, as you've said, Teresa. But as a parent, like it's great to even know that here's what we're working on. Here's there's challenges and it's coming. Look in the next week, here's where we're at, the plans, things like that have been really great information for me as a parent. So thanks to everybody who is not only putting that information together and getting it out, Erin, but also being really, empathetic and understanding to the parents and the families to let them know that we haven't forgotten about this. It's coming. We're just, we're waiting on more information, or we need this detail. So that's been really great for me as a parent as well.
Thank you, Director Schatz. Director Chester, I see your hand is up.
Yes. So yeah, and kind of going off of what Darcy said, yes, thank you for doing your best to keep us informed. And at the same time, I'm going to kind of ask some questions that we might not have definitive answers for, but would maybe help provide, again, that peace of mind information that parents are looking for. Like I know that most of us parents have gotten emails about kind of what cohorts in terms of the hybrid model our children are being placed in. But some of the next steps are, and I know a lot of this is taking time to figure out, but kind of an estimation when parents and kids are going to be informed of their schedules and what that's going to look like, because if school's going to start in 2 weeks, that's kind of around the corner, is one question I have. I can start with that one. I have got like 3 questions.
So thank you for that, Director Chester. Members of the board, I'm going to ask Brian Gersich to answer that first question. As Stacy Sovine just shared, the principals were working on the staffing. They have also been working on the school schedules. They do have members of their building leadership team that they've been working with. So I'll turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Gersich.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's going to be a range of that. I would expect that that's going to come out early next week. I certainly don't want to overpromise, but
Right.
I know just as of late, some of the work with the high school is what we were discussing this afternoon. And I feel like that's probably early to mid next week. I know that we're also talking about our virtual academy and trying to get those sections through. So I really do think based on the progress that early to mid next week is probably a reasonable target for that. And I'd certainly have to, beg people's apologies if we suddenly hit a little bit of a snag in doing that process, as we were talking about. There's a months and months long of process that has been jammed into a couple of weeks. And I'll reiterate what Stacy said about the staffing process for the elementary. The master schedule for a 2,500 student high school that was now turned into 2 separate schools where we have basically a virtual academy of about 800 students and a high school of 1,500 creates some of those complexities. So that's at least a reasonable estimate, I would say.
Great, thank you. And then along those lines, like I just filled out the survey about meals for schools, like because that was sent out trying to get a sense about meals. But one of the things, because I'm not seeing it right now on the website link that Aaron went through, is there any information in terms of when you're in distance learning, where would some of, have we identified, are they going to be the same meal sites that have been operating for the summer for pickup on the days that there's distance learning? I'm not sure if there's modifications for that or not, or if that's still being determined.
Lisa?
Yes, so we will have meals that will be picked up at both Eagle Ridge and Nicollet Middle Schools, and in addition at Ron Elementary School as we get rolling into the next year. That pickup date will likely be on Wednesday, and families will have options of picking up various numbers of meals depending upon what their needs may be. Every family will find that they're needing to take a look at how many meals they might be needing, as the students, when they are in the buildings, will also be receiving their meals there, and you can only pick up one meal for each, day. So that's kind of the setting. Breakfast and lunch will be delivered at the curbside together, and so you'll see a combined meal price that will assist families in being able to just be able to tell how many days of meals they're looking for as they come to pick up. We are distributing IDs as well as a barcode sheet that Food and Nutrition will be sending out to families as they need to, and we will be scanning those codes in order to be able to track the meals for the National School Breakfast and Lunch Program.
Great, thank you. And then one of my last questions, hold on, let me find it. Oh yeah, so with childcare sites, we know that like the all-day childcare was going to be at like Sioux Trail, for example, and another location. But I know that Aaron had mentioned that there's been some new news about childcare, especially in the before and after school maybe options at the schools. I don't know if there was any update or anything that we could report. I know that several parents, including myself, are really interested in knowing about before and after school care.
Yes, the expectation and intention is to have after school and before school care at every single elementary school. And in addition, the all-day care will be available at the Sioux Trail and Marion W. Savage Elementary Schools sites. So that that care is also going to be available then for Wednesdays, as well as other days that students may be distance learning and families are needing childcare. The requirements as to exactly what is available to families based upon the executive order and such, those details are what are coming out in the next week, so everyone can better understand that.
Thank you very much. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Director Chester. Any other questions? All right, I will wrap this up with comments and questions of my own. I can't agree more with comments of my fellow board members in terms of thanking Dr. Battle, you and your leadership team and principals and staff and teachers that have been working so hard to really make this work and make sure that we keep people safe and healthy. It's just such a huge lift. And I know it's been a week, it's been a month, and we can't thank you all enough for everything that you're doing to watch out for our students. So thank you. Couple detailed questions. One, just to clarify, because I know I've been asked in terms of busing, Lisa, the model that we're working with is still the same model that we had last year, where the shuttle buses are leaving the middle schools and the elementary students would be picked up along their route. High school
Yeah.
students would be picked up at the middle school. I'm sorry.
Okay, yes. Yes, that is the intent of our model, that we are utilizing that. Now, the challenge for us is the number of people who may have chosen to opt out and what that might shift that model to look like. So it's really a question of letting the routers work with the data to figure out exactly what this now needs to look like. wherever possible, we are trying to minimize the amount of people transferring from one bus to another. The intent is that every single one of our buses now needs to go all the way to the high school, and students would not transfer to another bus for a shuttle. That means finding space at the high school for those buses to pull up and drop off students. And so it's about staggering and trying to figure that out. So all of that is the challenge of our routers and trying to understand the complexities that, we've had a number of different things that have needed to take place. The opt-out, the identification of student cohorts, and then from there now they have the data in front of them. It's about, let's see where it goes. So we encourage families to keep an eye out for the postcards that we have sent in the past. We will likely additionally send again this year. However, we encourage families to certainly get online with Parent View, as that will afford them the opportunity to clearly see their students' bus route, and any modifications that are made to it are made nightly back over to our student system. And so Parent View works really well for families to be able to keep track of exactly what that route looks like. And given the current environment where things can change very quickly, that would be a really good thing for families to know that they have available to them.
So really, in addition to the emails that parents and families are receiving, a regular check into Parent View, just to stay abreast, knowing that things could change rather.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No. And in terms of the identification, the ID cards, that's for all students, not just the secondary students.
Yes, we have tried something different this year than what's been in the past, and I know that there's some wondering about how well ID cards distributed to our elementary students will work for them. But I think the goal is that we want to make sure we're doing contact tracing on our buses. So that means that you want to know the students as they are, on the buses and they're reaching a school. They're going to be met by a staff member, and that staff member is basically going to take attendance before they exit the bus. And that sheet then is going to stay with the driver, and all of the sheets will be gathered each day and gathered for our purposes should we need to go back and determine who may have been on the same bus as a student that may have been impacted by COVID. So as a result, the ID for elementary students helps us to identify the student's name. If they're nervous, they don't want to talk at the moment, whatever the case might be. So that's the primary gist of why we're looking for elementary students to now carry that ID on their backpack or on their person. Additionally, then, as I mentioned, food service, to avoid the PIN pad being utilized by multiple people, the idea is instead that they will scan the barcode on those IDs as well. And so as students come through the lines at school for food service, they will find themselves being socially distanced and only a certain number of students at a time to get their meals and return to their classrooms. And as they do so, then their IDs will serve that ability for them to just, someone else can scan that barcode and they don't have to touch anything other than their tray.
That's great. So masks and ID cards will be important to be attached to our little ones' backpacks.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. This has been a very informative report. Our thanks to you all. And I know we'll continue to receive reports as we go through the school year. Next, I will be providing a report on the board meeting model during COVID-19. The Burnsville-Egan Savage School District 191 Board of Education is considering transitioning from all virtual board meetings to a hybrid meeting format beginning next month. In a hybrid meeting format, the first meeting of every month would continue to be virtual, while the second meeting of the month would be hybrid, with some or all board members attending the meeting in person. During in-person meetings, strict social distancing would apply. Accommodations will be made for board members who wish to attend remotely as allowed under State Statute 13D.021. In all cases, all board meetings will remain open to the public through online broadcast. We have asked staff to explore what might be possible, and this work continues. Specifically, technology remains a challenge. We know that more research is needed to handle sound so that there is no feedback, as well as to avoid significant audio and visual delays based on two or more people participating from multiple locations. Assuming we are able to successfully implement a hybrid meeting model, the format of the board meetings would continue to adapt to align with the district's learning model at any given point in time. Our priority now is to identify a safe and viable hybrid solution which fulfills our responsibility as a district to be open and transparent with our community while simultaneously protecting the well-being and health of everyone involved. We are all in this together. This ends my report. Next, turning to approval of our consent agenda. Although board action is required, it is generally unnecessary to hold discussion on these items. In the event that a board member wishes to discuss an item, that item will be moved for separate consideration. Is there anything that board members would like to separate? Seeing none, I will take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Director Courier. Second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Miller. Ms. Kenny, would you please do the roll call?
Hester,
Aye.
Courier,
Aye.
Hume,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schatz,
Aye.
Alt.
Aye.
Aye. And the motion carries. Thank you. As we move into the new business portion of our meeting, I would like to call a point of order. People might remember that at our previous meeting this month, the Ice Arena contract with the City of Burnsville was tabled and was to come forward at tonight's meeting. In between that, the last meeting and tonight, the city has requested that we pull that contract from our agenda as they work through their own process trying to figure out how best to move forward with contracts in a world of COVID. So I expect we'll have more information for you at some point soon. We'll be sure to bring that back and let everyone know. First business item, I'd like to invite Lisa Ryder back. We're being asked to authorize the sale of refunding bonds. Lisa, welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening. So 2 weeks ago, on August 13th, there was a board workshop in which our school board heard from Jeff Seeley of Ellers, who is our financial advisor. That he presented on a pre-sale report. This report is included in the agenda. It is available for anyone to view. This current refunding that we are discussing to do this fall would refund our existing 2011 A series bonds. So a refunding is similar to a homeowner refinancing a home, where the goal is typically to reduce interest costs and therefore save money on future payments. For us, the 2011 series bonds have interest rates from here through its entirety of 3% to 4.75%. And you can see that on page 7 of the pre-sale report if you're interested. However, based on our estimates in the current market, we anticipate that these rates may be as low as 2 to 4%. And so with the lower interest rates as well as a premium that may be paid by the underwriter, we anticipate there could be a savings of $2,165,000 for this refunding of these bond series. The savings would be in existence for the years from 2022 through 2030 of our bond and our interest and principal payments. The resulting reduction for taxpayers means that the debt service levies for taxes that are payable during the payable 2021 through 2029 then would be reduced. So as soon and as early as the levy that is upcoming this December for the board to approve, we could see the impact of those savings on that particular first year. The savings is spread over the period of the remaining part of these bonds. All of the future savings of these refunding bonds does remain within the Fund 7, which is what we call our debt service fund. Okay. And ultimately what that means is there's less dollars requested of taxpayers in order to cover the costs of paying those principal and interest payments in the future years. So with that being said, if I may, the recommendation is that the Board of Education adopt the resolution providing for the sale of general obligation alternative facilities refunding bonds, Series 2020A, and covenanting and obligating the district to be bound by and to use the provisions of Minnesota Statute Section 126C.55 to guarantee the payment of the principal and interest on these bonds.
Thank you. I will take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved
Second.
by Director Schatz, seconded by Director Miller. Questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Kenny, will you please call the roll?
Courier,
Aye.
Hume,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schatz,
Aye.
Aye.
Alt,
Aye,
Chester.
Aye.
and the motion carries. Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Principal Dave Helke. We are being asked to approve the activities handbook. Welcome, Principal Helke.
Thank you, and good evening, Chair Alt, Superintendent Battle, and members of the Board of Education. The Burnsville High School Athletic and Activity Handbook was created to increase awareness of the many different extracurricular and co-curricular opportunities available to students. Students who are involved in an activity are more connected to their school community and more likely to be successful academically. The Burnsville High School Athletic and Activity Handbook is distributed to all new students at the beginning of the school year and available online. The handbook is updated annually to accurately reflect the opportunities available to students, information about the opportunities, and in some cases, contact information. Attached is the text for the handbook. And tonight I bring forward a recommendation that the Board of Education approves the 2021 Burnsville High School Athletic and Activity Handbook.
Thank you. I will take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Director Hume,
Second.
seconded by Director Courier. Questions or discussion?
Chair Alt.
Director Courier.
Principal Helke, just a reminder, especially this year, about what is available for students who might have a challenge paying fees.
Yes, very, very good question. Really, as with any year, we do have lots of mechanisms to assist students in terms of participating in activities and athletics and not have to worry about the fee. It has always been our belief that we do not want the fee to be a barrier to students' participation. So yes, for any activity, for any athletic event that we have, there are processes for students to have that fee partially waived or fully waived, depending upon need.
Thank you.
Great question. Thank you, Director Courier. Any other questions or comments? I'm just always impressed. Every year we talk about how many activities that that the high school offers. And even in the world of COVID, it's great to know that that we're doing our best to figure out how to connect our students through our activities. So thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Yes, and I would just like to say a big thank you to Guillaume Pack and Jay Lepper, who have worked very hard on this and continue to work hard on it in this day and age of COVID.
Great point. Thank you. With that, Ms. Kenny, would you please call the roll?
Hume,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schatz,
Aye.
Alt,
Aye.
Chester,
Aye.
Courier.
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you very much. Next, Lisa Ryder will be bringing forward recommendations for policies. We're being asked to approve on a first reading basis changes to policy 412, expense reimbursement for travel, policy 713, student activity accounting, and policy 720, vending machines. Welcome back, Lisa.
Thank you. I'll start with 412, which is the expense reimbursement for travel. Essentially, we are moving from a per diem approach for this purpose to one of reimbursement for detailed receipts and clarifying how airline travel is to be managed. So you see modifications under reimbursement, Roman numeral number 5A and B, and then the airline is addressed under 6A. Essentially, just asking for those detailed itemized receipts and the personal automobile travel, reminding people of the timeliness of them necessary of reporting that, and that it is reimbursed at the internal revenue service rate, which has not changed. As far as airline travel is concerned, under 6A, we are asking that all of those reservations be charged on the district provided purchase card, and any credits or benefits must be accrued to the benefit of the school district rather than an employee. Essentially, that's the changes made under this particular policy, which is a policy revision brought forward internally and not necessarily required by MSBA in any way. Moving to the next policy, 713, student activity accounting. This policy's revision is brought forward as a result of a statute change. Minnesota statute has now changed where student activities, which used to be an option of being outside of board control, and that is how we had it. That now is requiring that all student activities are now under board control across the state of Minnesota. And this results in changes to the accounting for the revenue and expenditures that you can see stated under 3B2. And with that, I'm sorry, 3B, 4B2, sorry, there we go. 4B2, and then there's been quite a bit of revision made to the fact that we no longer have not under board control, so they eliminated quite a bit of language there and did some renumbering that you see under the section 4 there. And then under section 5, they have modified things to remind us that graduated classes are no longer student activity accounts as soon as the students graduate. So then it's just clarifying where those funds do go under the new statute. Additionally, they did add under section Roman numeral number 5, 5B, in fact, a fundraiser report. And so this is new, and they're requiring that we prepare a fundraising report semi-annually from administration regarding fundraising so that that can be reviewed on at least a twice a year basis. So we would be looking to do that according to this policy, and that would be new for us. Policy revision. The next policy is policy 720, vending machines. And under 5B, you will see that there is a reduction to the dollar amount that this policy applies to, and clarification of what happens when you do have a contract that we anticipate there may be aggregate receipts that exceed $10,000. And so it's clarifying the kind of bid processes that must be followed. And so that's the change that's being made to this particular policy, also initiated by MSBA. Under 6C, under the accounting, additionally, they are calling out the necessity of having within a contract or internally, if we're doing it, controls that include the daily, weekly, or other periodic inventories and accounting so that we can be sure that the commissions is being correctly calculated. So of those 3 policies, 2 of them are MSBA initiated, and the first one, as I indicated, was internal. And that is a summary of those modifications. You're muted.
Abigail, you're muted.
Sorry. I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Director Chester, seconded by Schatz. Questions, comments? Seeing none, Ms. Kenny, would you please call the roll?
Hume,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schatz,
Aye.
Alt,
Aye.
Chester,
Aye.
Courier.
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Now I'd like to invite Brian Gersich to join us. We're being asked to approve on a first reading basis changes to policies 510, school activities, and 506, student discipline. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Cheryl, Superintendent Battle, Board of Directors. I am bringing forward two policies with recommended changes, starting with policy 510 related to student activities. Minor change on page 2 of the policy, which actually relates directly to the policy about student activities accounting that Director Ryder just discussed with you. And that's to add language in the activities policy that states that funds raised for extracurricular activities will be spent and used only for extracurricular activities. Again, direct relationship for what she just talked about, and money raised by the students would go towards those student activities as they come under board control. Policy 506, there's a few changes I'd like to talk through with you. 506, starting on 506-4, is kind of a long list of what are essentially unacceptable behaviors. We have a couple of changes recommended in that list. The first would be item 31, which says criminal activity. And the reason we're recommending basically for that language to be removed is we do feel there's a level of subjectivity to the way it's worded as criminal activity, but also believe that it's already covered in item 19 on page 506-5, which says that it's inappropriate to have a violation of local, state, and federal law, which essentially we believe covers it without having to worry about that particular piece of language. We're then also proposing a new item 44, which talks about, and this does parallel some of the language you saw in our handbook at the previous board meeting, that it would be deemed inappropriate or an unacceptable behavior is inappropriate use of personal electronic devices, filming or recording activities in a manner during the school day, and I'll just paraphrase, that would exclude sporting events or extracurricular activities. We would understand that people are likely to show up and film loved ones at a sporting event. We're talking about during the educational day, and just some of the rationale behind that is for the disruptive nature, as well as items that are recorded during the school day, including those things that are recorded on our own security devices, are actually educational data. And as such, do have some privacy expectations of what's happening during the context of the school day. Those things do not extend to extracurricular activities where the public is welcome to come in, buy a ticket. So that's what we're trying to differentiate with item 44 for those various reasons. The last recommended change can be found on 506-9. And it's simply adding a piece of language. It talks about removing students from class, and essentially just is adding an additional piece that if a student is being removed from a classroom for more than one day, that it would need to be in collaboration with the building principal to approve that. I think there's a number of reasons. It's an interesting omission that it hadn't been there before. Talking about things that would be more than a day does parallel what the expectation is from the state. If we get into a suspension, suspensions are only allowed by a licensed administrator. There are also implications for special education students that need to be monitored. And if we are removing students for multiple days, we need to make sure that we have our team monitoring that. And then just the logistical ensuring that our teams are working together to ensure that students are properly returning to instructional practices. So again, it really is just a matter of including the principal as a part of that when we're removing a student for more than a single class period. And that is the summary of those changes. Therefore, the recommendation that we have is that the Board of Education on a first reading basis approve changes to policies 510 school activities and 506 student discipline.
Thank you. I'll take a motion.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Moved by Director Courier, seconded by, I believe it was Director Chester. Questions or just, no?
Oh, it was, Director Schatz.
Director Schatz, I'm sorry. Any questions, comments? I just appreciate the work that goes into particularly the student discipline policy to make sure that we're really sharpening our pencil and really combing through that policy to make sure that we continue to leverage discipline to best serve our students. With that, Ms. Kenny, would you please call the roll?
Potts,
Aye.
Alt,
Aye.
Chester,
Aye.
Courier,
Aye.
Hume,
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you very much. This concludes our meeting. I will declare us adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your time and for joining us tonight. And have a lovely rest of your week.
Thank you.